Tom was around the set quite a bit. He was hanging around, and I asked him specifically about, was he aware of the effect that Fred was having on him. Tom was going through, I guess, anything that a man goes through, family and health and work and career. He wasn't the happiest guy on the planet. But in the course of doing his job, he came smack dab, face up against Fred Rogers, who were saying things like, "You're really special, You have a lot of gifts, and you work hard at what you do. And, you don't have to do anything to make me like you. I'm liking you fine." And I'm sure the jaded member of the Fourth Estate in Tom's mind would say, "What's this guy hiding? Why is he snowing me on this thing?" And he was just being Fred Rogers. She came out very specifically back to me with a perspective of the power of the force of Mr. Rogers as opposed to the plot that goes on. I said, okay, whoa. I get that. That I understand. And I hadn't seen the documentary yet. I hadn't done anything like that. I just knew that she was coming at this. This is the red dot of what this movie is, and that is the chosen power of empathy. I have played real guys before, people who actually existed. And sometimes I've spent a lot of time with the actual guys I played. Jim Lovell, Sully Sullenberger, Charlie Wilson. And all the time you say, look, I'm going to say things you didn't do and say things you didn't say and do things you didn't do. But beyond that, I want to be as accurate as possible. The added burden of, if I can be so bold, as Mr. Rogers, because it was not just the expectations of the man himself, but the expectations of everybody else about Mr. Rogers. I think he's one of those people that, for Fred, actually turned into a broader human experience. And I've seen the letters that they wrote back and forth to each other long after that. I saw a lot of correspondence that he would keep up. And he and Tom Junod, they kept in touch about everything that was possibly, under the sun, which is, again, Lloyd, in our movie, expanded Fred's world. And he was grateful for just how special a gift that is. Fred was literally one of the people who loved Lloyd into existence. In our movie, that's what happens. And Lloyd is he's a better everything. He's a better son. He's a better father. He's a better husband. He's a better journalist. He's a better friend. All because a guy who had no reason to do so said, you're very special. And I think you're great, just exactly as you are.
It's a very needful film right now. I think everybody that I've read or talked to, they want it tomorrow. And I couldn't be more delighted. He looks adorable as Fred. He looks wonderful. And he is just the nicest person you could ever want to meet. And I hear that from everybody, but that's my own experience with him. It's a fabulous tribute to Fred. And I'm so happy about that. I can't tell you. One of the most wonderful things about this film is that Tom Hanks will be playing Fred Rogers. Fred Rogers was a huge fan of Tom Hanks.
He was just this beloved figure. For so many of us who grew up in the 70s or the 80s or 90s, he just represented good in the world in so many ways. And the thing that he does for children that I think I now as a parent relate to so much is he actually listens to children and tries to give voice to their feelings and lets their experience be valid. Tom and I talked a lot in the months leading up to shooting about Fred's voice and about his mannerisms. And I think the trickiest thing for Tom was sort of to just slow himself down. We never wanted it to be like he was doing an SNL impersonation. We never wanted it to feel like a skit. So we knew it was always going to have Tom Hanks in there. But Tom Hanks is a really charming guy. He walks into a room, you know he's there, he's chatting with everyone, he's greeting everyone, he's got like a booming loud voice, he's really present, but he never lets an awkward moment happen. He doesn't, he'll always fill it and tell a joke and make everyone feel comfortable, which Fred wasn't like that. Fred was quiet. Fred was very comfortable with silence, or whether he was comfortable or not, he allowed for a lot of silence. He didn't really mind if he was making you uncomfortable. And he kind of just stared at you, and he didn't also move a lot. And like, I can just feel myself as I'm sitting here gesticulating all the time. Tom's the same way. He gesticulates, he moves his body, he shifts around. Fred kind of found his position and kind of kept it. And if you watch him in interviews, he's really still. So that was sort of the biggest challenge, honestly, was just tapping into like this different energy. There was this sort of weird duality happening on set all the time where the real people were meeting our version of those people, or even I think Joanne Rogers hanging out with Tom Hanks when he was dressed as her husband. I think there was, for them, it was probably so surreal. For them, it probably felt like a weird dream where they were stepping back in time and going up to a funhouse mirror and looking at themselves. But for us, it was all about wanting to make sure they felt like we were doing them right and doing them proud. And over and over again, people said to me that they were so touched by how much we cared and how respectful they felt like we were being, and that we really got it right. My hope with this film was always that this isn't about telling the story of Mr. Rogers or telling a biopic or letting you know some interesting sordid detail about his life. I hope that people take a moment to reflect on themselves and their own emotional self and their own emotional well-being, and get to reflect on their humanity through watching the movie, which is a bigger challenge to the audience than I think people maybe will be expecting.